My friend Luke, his sister had leukemia, and I wanted to help find the cure for cancer because I thought that was really sad.
A while back, my sister was diagnosed with leukemia, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it. And after she wasn't cured yet, but I found out about St. Baldrick's Foundation, and I did it once with one of my good friends, Colton, and then I got some of my other friends into it, and this is my 4th year doing it.
My awareness about childhood cancer has been it's exploded. And I've learned about children like Isla Jean Rathbone, who was a little girl in Schenectady, and she was 6 or 7 last year. And I learned that she was diagnosed at 18 months with something called neuroblastoma, and she had lived for a year and a half without the cancer, but last year at this time her cancer had returned. And so when I read about her story, I was amazed at the litany of treatments that she had received. She just countless rounds of chemotherapy and radiation and surgeries, and I really couldn't believe that such a young person could withstand all of those really harsh treatments. And but what also stood out were the pictures of her beautiful blue eyes. There's this picture where she's got this red flower in her hair, and you could see her blue eyes. And so I was drawn to her story. I followed her mom's blog, and I prayed for her every day, and I drew inspiration from her. One of the things that I love to do is I like to run, and I do triathlons. And so last year I was training for my first marathon, and there were those long runs, and you're a runner too, that were long and painful. And I thought about Isla Jean, and I prayed for her, and I knew that no matter how lousy I was feeling and how hard it was for me to just keep pushing myself forward, that I thought of her, and that she was fighting for her life, and that it just, thinking about her helped keep me strong and kept me going. And sadly, she passed away in April of last year. But she came to the event last year to surprise her family and her friends, the team Isla Jean, and you can see the pictures of her, that she's mugging for the camera with her bunny ears behind her friends. And that spirit and that spunkiness of her never giving up has really inspired me. And so I think about her and other kids who are just so courageous, and they just help me be stronger.
The St. Baldrick's Foundation is an international organization that started about 14 years ago in a bar in New York City, based on a bet between 2 men. And they were thinking about what happens to children who are diagnosed with pediatric cancer. And they decided to create a foundation to help out those children. And they sort of devised the idea of people shaving their heads in solidarity with children going through that experience. We're really fortunate to live here in the Capital Region because there are groups of people in our wider area that are very impassioned about helping kids with cancer. And because of that, the Capital Region is one of the top fundraisers for the St. Baldrick's Foundation internationally. They have several different salary lines that are covered through St. Baldrick's research grants, and it allows them to work with kids who have particularly unique and complicated forms of cancer. And those kids are able to go on clinical trials and stay in their hometown area and get the same top treatments that they might get, for example, in Boston or at St. Jude's. And monitoring clinical trials is a very expensive and laborious process, and so to have medical faculty right in our own area that can run these trials is really amazing. And
well, I mean, we know that we had a couple doctors come into our events and speak to the same thing, and I think That's key. People always want to know when they're donating something, where does the money go? So a lot of the money does come back to the area. And one thing we learned early on is that if your child gets sick and your hospital subscribes to protocols that are part of a known set of treatments, it doesn't really matter where you live. And these guys are part of this national oncology group, and that's also helped them to get the research money because they're doing the kind of things that help everybody. So they spread it out, spread their research and their health. It's really important.
Yes, for example, our daughter was able to receive treatment at Albany Medical Center. We took her to Sloan Kettering in New York City for a second opinion, and they said you would receive the very same treatment. It's called a roadmap. Hers lasted for 3 years, and she would receive the very same treatment here in Albany. And it's partly because of St. Baldrick's that they can treat children with the top and the latest medical treatments available.
Very cool. I'll just keep this rolling.
If he doesn't stop, you don't say anything, you're going to keep talking.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better to have more than less, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I'll just move on to the next one. How can people in our community get involved?
Okay, I'll just start out with that one. Well, the best way to get involved is to sign up to shave your head. And if you do that, what you wind up doing is go out to your friends and family and say, hey, I'm going to shave my head for this foundation. Would you sponsor me? Would you give me $25? Would you give me $50? Whatever. And if you're inspired to do that, the next thing from there is to get a team of people. So you're the captain, and you can get a whole squad of people. We had basketball teams do it, lacrosse teams from Niskayuna to do it. Just various people from work and things. You can donate. Anybody can donate. You can go to corporations and ask them to get behind it in a big way. You know, there's different ways they can do it. But probably the biggest thing to get involved is to do the shaving, because even after you do it, even if you raise $25, people are going to ask you, what happened to you? Did you fall asleep in the chair or something? And you can spread the word. Also, each person gets a T-shirt, and you can walk around town, and it helps keep it going. So that's the biggest thing. And most of the people we meet the first time, they're a little bit reluctant. We say, just come by and check it out, because it's pretty inspiring to see many people do this. In fact, the first year I did it, I lost a bet to my son, and he said, I'm pretty sure he wasn't going to do it, but he said, yeah, I'll do it. So I was on the spot and I had to do it. But you see women with shoulder-length hair cutting their hair off, you can't really get too worried about your own look. And it really helps you understand the mission of St. Baldrick's. So coming to an event is probably the #1 thing.
Absolutely. We can't really describe to you what the event is like, and the inspiration and the emotion that comes from these people shaving their heads in solidarity with what children go through. And I don't think most people are aware until they start learning about St. Baldrick's how there's such little funding for these young people.
When I started 30 years ago, probably only 40% of children with acute lymphocytic leukemia, which is the most common type we treat, most common type of childhood cancer, we had an overall success rate of 40%. Now, 85 to 90%. There are many cancers that we have seen dramatic improvements in cure rates. And when I say cure, I mean taking an individual who has cancer and having them grow up to be an adult, have a family, go to college, have a career, have a full and normal life. And that's very, very satisfying. And most of that success has come through clinical research trials.
What drew me to wanting to shave my head, first and foremost, was doing this in honor of Audrey DeBritz. And Audrey knows that I wear the bracelet that we put on in 6th grade, and that I keep that on forever there. And so that drew me to wanting to shave my head and to be a part of the committee immediately. I can make a difference in this act by, first of all, getting my head shaven today and serving as a role model for middle school students about that, and about how we can always make our mark and find a way to help others in small and in big ways.